Good afternoon and welcome USD to your favorite sports talk radio show, Bix and K. As always, he's K, I'm Bix. You guys might notice that we're coming to you at a little bit different time today with finals week here at the University of San Diego. Our schedules have been thrown off. Luckily, we still found a way to fit in our final show this semester, so we will be here with you guys from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Pacific Coast time. And Kay, it's a special day for you, man. This is it.
This is it, and I'm kind of sad, but I know that you will carry the torch when you return in 2018. I want to just say thank you. I mean, we're going to get into everything. We're going to get a little sappy maybe a little later, but I just want to say thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Towards the end of the show, we were actually averaging anywhere between 800 to 1,000 viewers. That means a lot to me. That means a lot to you, I'm sure, Bix. And let's get this final show going.
Yeah, and just to make it abundantly clear for those tuning in for the first time, Kay is a graduating senior, so he won't be returning next year. I myself am heading abroad, so there won't be a show until next spring.
2018.
The spring semester. So it'll be sad to take some time off, and I'll be sad to see Kay go, but we're very excited for what the future holds, and hopefully we can give you a final great show for the road, Kay.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I think you got a comment there that you should read out loud.
A little comment from Nick Hatton out here saying that the show will get worse when Kay leaves. Thanks for the resounding support, Nick. I really very much appreciate it. And with that, let's dive right in. It's only fitting, Kay, that for our last show, we begin with your favorite sport, the NBA.
Yeah, and so before we get into that, I think so the basic format of the show is going to be the same for the first hour. I haven't even done the pre-show, so it's kind of a wild card for me. I'm pretty excited about it. First hour of the show will be very standard, and then...
Yeah, we got something special planned for Kay the last half hour. So.
All right, well, yes, let's get into the NBA. Obviously, it is high time for the NBA as we depart Bix and K. What's the first thing you want to talk about regarding the NBA? Because we got a lot.
Well, the first major thing that happened this week was an amazing Game 7. Celtics, Wizards. It seemed like the NBA was forecasting what might happen. You can tell us a little bit about that, Kay. But it was a great Game 7 and a really good series as a whole. It's too bad that, whoever had won, in this case it's the Celtics, is just going to lose probably in 4 or 5 games to the Cavs. But
yeah, and, a couple things on the Celtics-Wizards series. First of all, it felt like the longest series ever, and I think what you meant when you said the NBA was forecasting, the NBA on TNT actually, before the game was even over, I think in the first quarter, they had changed their graphics to show the Eastern Conference Finals as the Celtics and the Cavs. Of course, that came through. That kind of sparked the whole NBA's rig thing in favor of LeBron. But
it comes up every year, doesn't it?
It comes up every year. I will say, it was the NBA on TNT. I don't think it had anything to do with the league itself, but obviously that's always going to come up. But talking about that series, it felt like a really long series, a really hard-fought series, and I think LeBron and the Cavs will be really thankful that it went 7 because LeBron actually got 9 days of rest, which is kind of unprecedented in the finals. In the playoffs. Obviously, for an older LeBron, that's a really good thing. And going forward, everyone still has to remember that even though they will go maybe 4 or 5, I would say, the first 2 games are in Boston. And the first 2 games are, I don't know, just happened.
I was asked for a wave.
Oh, okay.
So shout out to Gary Couch.
All right. Well, I actually just got a Periscope comment saying that our faces are helping him to be on the toilet. So we're multifaceted.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Anyway, the first 2 games are in Boston. Boston is a very hard place to play. The TD Garden, known for its heckling fans. LeBron has found success there, but through trial and tribulation. To lock it up in 4 or 5, obviously he's got to at least win one of those 2 games, which is not an easy task, or win both of them. So it should be a fun start to that series, which is actually going to start during the show, I believe.
Yeah, it tips off at 5:30 Pacific Coast time, so we will keep you guys updated on on the game. We hope that you stay with us when it actually tips off. First quarter doesn't matter anyway. So hopefully you'll stay with us until 6 and then go catch the rest of it. But it should be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Kay, the Celtics do have the advantage in Game 1, like you mentioned. The series starts over in Boston, so these first 2 games will be incredibly crucial, especially for Isaiah Thomas and his crew to get things going if they want to have any sort of chance at challenging LeBron. And really, you mentioned the rest that LeBron got. You look at the other side on the West, the Warriors had a fair amount of rest going into their Spurs series.
Right.
We've talked about it all year. This finals is almost inevitable between the Cavs and the Warriors. But what we've neglected to mention this whole time is that no 2 teams have ever faced each other 3 consecutive years in the NBA Finals. If this happens, it will be historic, it will be groundbreaking,
Unprecedented, yeah.
and it will be another chapter in what's become the trilogy of an amazing matchup.
Well, let's picture this, Bix. You got let's say you're 50 years old now. You got little Bixes running around. You're in your very nice house. You turn on ESPN if it's still around then, and you get to watch a 30 for 30 special on this series of series, the trilogy as it probably will be known to be. As you said, it's almost inevitable, another historic chapter, and I think I would say it's probably the last chapter. I mean, there's no way it goes 4, although it's kind of set up that it might happen.
I don't know.
But what's so great about it right now, as we sit here right now on May 17th, it's tied, right? So you have the Warriors won the first one, the Cavs won the second one. What's funny is it's not really like it's the Lakers Celtics of yesteryear. It's not like 2 big, Los Angeles, Boston, 2 big markets. It's San Francisco, which is a budding market, and Cleveland. So what's made it really interesting is the dynamic play style. So you have I would argue, the new style of basketball versus the old style of basketball. Now, obviously, the Cleveland Cavaliers this year have been more new style, adding shooters and playing more small ball. But if you think about it, it's Steph with the 3 and LeBron with the dunk. It's Kyrie with the flair and Clay again with the shooting.
And just that fact is a testament to, going back to the Cavs for a minute, how good LeBron James has been over the course of his career. Because I think a couple days ago it was Colin Cowherd who mentioned this on his daytime show, Speak for Yourself. LeBron is not only great because of the numbers that he's put up and the success that he's had over his time in the NBA. Add to that the fact that the entire game itself has shifted and changed in the middle of his career, and he had to take that in stride, and he's continued to be great. And then now, what, like you mentioned, is a 3-point shooting game. He has become one of the premier players in that game. So he's completely changed who he was as a power forward, a true number 4 coming into the league at the beginning of his career, and can now play with anyone. He can shoot from outside. He can still be the big man when his team needs it. It's remarkable.
It is, and it's a testament to him, as you mentioned. It's also a testament to his adaptability, and you've touched on that previously. One thing I will say is, again, LeBron started as a number 4. In his Miami Heat days is actually when he worked on his 3-ball, and now he doesn't even take those much anymore because he's become what I like to call a hockey passer. He makes the assist before the assist. To have that vision on the court reminds me of Magic +1. So he won't be credited with the triple doubles that he deserves because the assist before the assist doesn't count for much in basketball, but it sure counts in terms of points that he's allowing to be scored on behalf of his team. He doesn't take that many threes unless it's needed for him, right? But he will let Kyrie pass it to him, draw the screen, pass it to a wide open Kyle Korver, and that's one of his most unnoticed things about his game right now. And it's something to be respected because he is 32. Most players are in their twilight. LeBron is extending his prime, and if he makes it to his 8 straight finals, that means his prime has lasted 8 years. That's amazing.
So, on that note, how do you see this upcoming series playing out between the Cavs and the Celtics? We've touched on it a little bit, but how does it go down, game by game?
I'm going to go Cavs in 5, and I'll start with the first game tonight. With the rest and the Celtics only having, I think, a 48-hour turnaround time, I think that LeBron ends up winning this one to make a statement game. I think Boston bounces back. The Garden becomes the Garden that we know and are beginning to love under the new Brad Stevens regime. They win Game 2. Back in the Quicken Loans, though, I think this is where it's going to be fun. I think the Quicken Loans Arena wins 3 and 4. Cleveland wins 3 and 4. I think at least one of those games is going to be really close, and people are going to start talking. Is LeBron in trouble? But I think LeBron is going to say that's right where we want you. Finish it off in Game 5 in Boston. Make a statement for him and his team and his city, and focus up on the Warriors, who will likely beat the Spurs pretty quickly.
So moving into that next series, the Warriors are up 2-0 already.
Yep.
Kawhi's gone down for the Spurs. It's been a major factor. We're not sure what his status is for Game 3. Up in the air right now. How does the rest of this play out?
Yeah, so I think it is interesting that they're up 2 games to none, and it's interesting because there's been 2 games played before the other series even starts. I think Kawhi ends up returning for Game 4. It's going to be close for Game 3. I don't think he returns. I mean, that's tomorrow night, right? So I think if he gets to return for Game 4, maybe he wins one and makes it the Warriors in 5, but he can't win back-to-back and try to extend it into 6 or even 7. I think the Warriors are too strong for that. Kawhi, even when he returns, he's going to return for himself. He's not going to return at 100%, is what I'm saying. And so I think that one goes in 5 as well. I think we have both the Warriors and the Cavs winning respectively in 5, which means a long wait for the finals to even start.
And it means that both teams will only have lost 1 game over the course of the entire playoffs so far. That would put them each at 12-1. At this point, Cavs are 8-0, Warriors are 10-0, and rest is going to be a huge factor, I think, in this finals. You talk about the rest that LeBron has gotten between these last 2 series. That's been incredibly big for him and the Cavs, and potentially the rest that the Warriors will get between when they close out the series against the Spurs and the NBA Finals, because the last couple seasons, the way the NBA scheduling has worked out, the Cavs have wound up having more rest than the Warriors just because they started the playoffs earlier. And as we've seen, they've dominated what has been a weaker East over the last couple of years, and so they've reached the finals sooner and they've had more time off. This is the first time that the Warriors are actually ahead of the game, already up 2-0 in the Western Conference Finals. If they manage to sweep, even if they can get the Spurs in 5, that's huge for them because they get just that little bit extra rest that might prepare them for the rematch.
Yeah, and I think rest is really important. Obviously, the Golden State Warriors are younger. If you look at the averages, on the Cavs side of the ball, you have LeBron who's older, Channing Frye is older, Kyle Korver's not that young, etc. J.R. Smith. On the other side of the Warriors, you have players who are 25, 26, 26, 27. But rest is always important when you're playing 100 games in a season. One thing I will state, or I am curious about, is will that rest help Steve Kerr return for the finals? Adding a few days there for him to game plan and say, you know what, I got to be out there on the floor. That is my biggest question mark on if the Golden State Warriors win the championship this year, is if Steve Kerr can be on the floor. Because I think for morale, for game plan and everything, Mike Brown is proven, but he's not Steve Kerr.
And realistically, we're not going to have a definitive answer to that question until Game 1 of the finals rolls around. It came out earlier today that Steve Kerr is traveling with the Warriors to their game in San Antonio. So he's finally made it back on the plane. He's making the trip with his team. Probably still not going to be on the sideline.
Yeah, they're good in the hotel.
But it remains to be seen how he's going to be able to cope with the pain because, as we've talked about previously, Steve Kerr's not a very public guy when it comes to what he's been dealing with his back, with all the issues that he's had. And so he may seem great from the outside, but we've seen that before. And there's really no telling if he's going to be able to be out there for Game 1 of the finals. It's an incredible amount of stress, and as much as he wants to be out there, the fact that he may not be able to be shows you how serious of an ailment he's been dealing with and how difficult it's been for him over the last year and a half, 2 years.
Sure, and you have to keep in mind that if you're a head coach in the NBA, it's a relatively active job. You're not just sitting around. It's not like, I would say the comparison. It's not like you're in the booth of as a coordinator in football, where you can be up there, you can have your drink, you can be comfortable up there, and get whatever you need in terms of a padded chair and whatnot. But you have to be standing up and you have to be moving around a little bit if you're on the floor in the NBA. Not only that, there's even the chance of you're so close to the players. There's even a chance of them knocking into you, and that could go into permanent paralysis if you're thinking of that being a possibility, because it certainly is. So I'm sure the doctors for Steve Kerr have thought of all that, and that's a big reason. I mean, it's one thing that he's going to travel, but I can only imagine that he's just going to stay in the hotel room and maybe coach them at halftime. And the technology's there for that. But in terms of morale, I think that's the biggest, and ego management, that's the biggest deal that Steve Kerr's not on there.
Now, as this is our last show of the semester, I don't want to forecast too much, but
Yeah.
we can probably both agree. We've talked about this most of the year. Say it again. It's going to be Cavs-Warriors in the finals.
Yeah.
Give me the keys to winning the series for both teams.
Sure.
How do the Cavs win? How do the Warriors win?
And before I address that, I want to talk about an interesting dynamic that's playing out. First of all, if you tune into a lot of the media, if it's FS1, if it's ESPN, if it's Bleacher Report online, whatever you choose, everyone is talking about the dominance of LeBron James, and a lot of people are in support of how LeBron has acted and how LeBron has again swept round two. So it feels like people are rooting for the Cavs and people are expecting the Cavs to win. That's one side of the ball. But what do I always say about Vegas?
Vegas never lies.
Vegas never lies. And Vegas is putting the Golden State Warriors as a minus 300 favorite. That means you'd have to put down $3 just to win $1. That's an overwhelming favorite. So there's two sides of the ball. I think a lot of people are expecting that LeBron's going to win fourth, but I think a lot of people, the smart experts in Vegas, are saying it's almost a guarantee that the Golden State Warriors are going to win. So the keys to the game for the Cavaliers will have to be managing that side of conflict in terms of you're going to start the first two games in Oracle again for the third year. So you got to split those. You're not going to win both of them. You got to split those. Going back to the Q, you got to split those or win both. You can't go down away. So, and another thing is obviously those rotations. You have a deeper bench this year. You have a healthy team. No Kevin Love ailments. No Kyrie ailments. LeBron's in great shape. Use that to your advantage and get rest when necessary to keep yourself in the game. If you have an 8 to 10 point lead, put some bench players in. Let them at least defend that lead, maybe not gain on it, and put LeBron back in to close this thing out. Another thing is, obviously, you got to put LeBron on Kevin Durant. Even if it's not going to be matched up where they're going to play on the court, you got to put LeBron on Kevin Durant.
That's going to be a matchup for the ages if it happens.
It is. They've faced each other in the finals before in 2012. They've trained together in the offseason. LeBron knows. He's been studying Kevin Durant for a big part of his career, and Kevin Durant's only had LeBron to look up to, so you got to put LeBron on there. Now, for the Golden State Warriors, play what you know. Play small ball, move the ball around, wear down the slower guys like Kyle, Kevin, LeBron. LeBron's not slow, but, compared to the quickness of Steph, play what you know. Steph was shooting great last night. He's got to turn that on for all of the games in the finals and use that home court advantage to your ultimate advantage because it's going to go to 6 or 7.
And your winner in 6 or 7?
I say Vegas never lies, but the ineffability of LeBron in this series, in this season, is going to be the ultimate factor. LeBron wins number 4. Congratulate him. Let's have another party in Cleveland. Take that bet right now, plus 300.
Well, we may have to make a little gentleman's bet on this game because you got it wrong. It's going to be all dubs in 6 games.
What's the bet? Are we dinner, maybe?
Dinner sounds good to me.
All right, man. Well,
Bulls barbecue down the street. How
Bulls,
about it?
yeah, the Bulls mac and cheese. I'm all for it.
Sounds good.
Sounds great. I will say though, is it going to be? You're going to say Golden State in what? 5, 6, 7?
In 6.
In
The
6.
finals in 6. Dubs in 6.
I hope it's Cleveland in 7, man. That's going to be heartbreaking to the Oracle Arena.
I hope it's Dubs in 6. That way they close it out in Cleveland.
One thing I want to say though is there's a lot of Golden State Warrior haters out there, and I think that people who are haters of the Golden State Warriors need to take a step back and realize that they're not a team like, they're not a Miami Heat team. They're not the villains. If you want to put a villain, maybe it's Kevin Durant, but you have to admit, your team, Golden State, has built entirely through the draft besides Kevin Durant. All of their star players have been through the draft. Another thing, Golden State has never been a historically maniacal franchise. They've been a very loyal fan base with a very fun atmosphere. Steve Kerr is not a hated coach. He's a proven coach. Steph Curry, very likable guy. Klay Thompson, same way. So focus on the basketball. If you're cheering for Cleveland, that's awesome. Just you have to pay your respects to Golden State. That's all I'm going to say right now.
I appreciate the shout out. It's taken a while. It's taken 2 years. But no, it's going to be a great series. We look forward to watching it. And who knows what can happen. Either way, we're going to witness history, whether it's the Cavs or the Warriors. The trilogy, we don't know if it's the final episode. Could be more in the future. But
I kind of hope it is.
It's certainly going to be a telling matchup. And break this tie. There's no excuses this time. Everyone's on full strength on either side of the ball, at least on the court. We don't know if the Warriors will have Kerr, but I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, I can't wait either. It sucks that we're going to be away from each other, though, because I'll be in LA at that point. I think it'll start in June 2nd.
That's why they've invented things like FaceTime. We'll figure it out.
Let's do it. That'll be fun. Let's do it.
On that note, the last thing we want to touch on, as it pertains to the NBA today, is it's gotten a little bit unnoticed because of everything that's been going on in the playoffs. But the NBA had their lottery right before Game 2, I believe, of the Warriors-Spurs series.
Yep.
And
Yesterday.
The order is now set for the NBA draft. First thoughts on how that shook out?
Yeah, so, a lot of people are proponents. They're fans of the NBA lottery. I'm not, because, one of the reasons why is, it hurts certain teams and it helps certain teams, and it kind of evokes this reaction of, okay, the NBA is rigged. I'm not here to say if it is or isn't. The Celtics got the number 1 pick, Lakers number 2, Philadelphia number 3. My first reaction was it's not really a deep draft, and it's all about Lonzo and Fultz. You have some role players here or there. So it was all about the first 2 picks. I'm happy that the Lakers got a top 2 pick. I'm worried about how they're going to use it, which we'll get to in a second. But my first thing is, man, it's hard to be a Knicks fan if you're a Knicks fan. At the
It really is.
Number 8 seed.
The Knicks picking down at number 8, which just seems like a gut punch after the season that they've had, and really the last couple of years. They can't seem to find a way to turn this ship around.
And I think if it was in the original order like the NFL would do, I think they would get like a top 5 pick, if I'm not wrong. So, and it's not a deep draft.
In the NBA this year, though, is that a huge difference? 5 to 8, 4 to 8?
I think in this draft it really is because, the top, so we got Fultz, Ball, Jackson's up there in the top 5, Jason Tatum, and then it's a toss-up. Maybe De'Aaron Fox rounds out the top 5. That's what they were saying on the mock drafts. After that, it's the pick of the litter, kind of. You can take a guy like Malik Monk, or you can go with maybe Jonathan Isaac, or Dennis Smith, but those aren't names that are gonna sell you jerseys, and they're not names that are franchise changers. But to kind of round up my thoughts here, let's kind of have a mock draft. Let's kind of talk about where do you think these top maybe 10 guys are going to go. Starting up with the Boston Celtics, who are probably the franchise of the year if this turns out well for them, which it probably will.
It's hard to see them going any other way than Markelle Fultz.
Yep.
He's been sort of the consensus number 1 pick for the last couple weeks, couple months even, and I think this is kind of a similar situation to what we saw in the NFL with Myles Garrett, where this is the clear number one for the Celtics. You may hear otherwise. Things may threaten to change before draft day, but in the end, the Celtics take Fultz, and, it goes as expected.
I agree if we're not counting trades into the matter, but if we are counting trades, you think they should go for Paul George? Trade the top pick for Paul George to
the Boston
Pacers?
Celtics?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that I like that move for them. I think the key is going to be to build through the draft.
And then when LeBron's gone?
And when LeBron's gone, that might be a little while. They might have to try and start winning before that. But I like sticking with the number one pick this year. I think Fultz would bring a lot to the Boston Celtics, and they're not going to have to give anything else up. They wouldn't have to give away this number one pick to get him. Obviously,
Pay him less.
they would use it to pick him, and they would have to use less money. This is the way to go for the Celtics at this point. They need to add a couple big pieces without adding to their payroll too much.
And it's certainly going to be a cheaper pick than Paul George, and it's going to be an upgrade from Avery Bradley or Marcus Smart. Now, moving on to the number 2 spot, it's almost guaranteed that the Los Angeles Lakers are taking Lonzo Ball. The reason I say that it's almost guaranteed, Magic Johnson has basically come out and said it. And another thing is D'Angelo Russell is already trying to be shipped into a package deal as a trade that would put Lonzo at the point guard. I don't agree with that. I think you got to keep D'Angelo and put Lonzo at the shooting guard spot. He's better fit there anyway. Kobe 2.0. But what are your thoughts on that number 2 pick?
We were just talking about this pre-show, Kay, and we were going to wait to get into it a little bit because later in our show, unfortunately, we were going to have to talk about LeVar Ball a little bit, Lonzo's father.
We're going to have to talk about him a lot if he goes to Los Angeles.
But the sad thing about this whole draft ordeal, and we were, again, talking about it just a few minutes ago, is that you rewind a couple months when Lonzo's entering his season, his freshman season at UCLA. He's got all the hype surrounding him. He's playing well. He goes out, has a great season, beats a team like Arizona. And at that point, I'm on his side. Everything's great. I'm enjoying watching him play. He's an extremely talented young man. And then you start to bring LeVar Ball into the picture, and his dad, and we're all well familiar with the media circus that LeVar has caused the last couple months.
Yep.
It's just getting worse and worse to the point where there's nothing bad that I can say against Lonzo Ball. Again, great player.
That's what sucks about
he's
it, right?
He's been very professional up until this point, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't continue to be that way. But LeVar Ball has just been so incredibly frustrating and annoying that I'm literally almost rooting against Lonzo. I'm hoping that something happens, anything happens, so that Lonzo Ball does not wind up on the Los Angeles Lakers. Which is sad, because asked me even a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this would be great. Good for the kid. I'd love to see him play for the Lakers. But at this point, just to spite LeVar Ball.
Yeah. Did the interview this morning with Cowherd and Leahy mess that up for you? Enhance the
LeVar Ball had messed things up for me long before the interview that he did this morning, but certainly it didn't help.
Yeah, he crossed the line. It went from being annoying in sports media to attacking another gender, and I'm not a proponent of that at all.
And for those of you who probably didn't see that interview this morning that Kay is referring to, Colin Cowherd had LeVar Ball on his show, and they got into things a little bit as the discussion progressed. Christine Leahy, the Cowherd's co-host, tried to jump in on the conversation and was basically shut down completely by LeVar, who refused to even acknowledge her.
Quite literally, he said, it was very insulting. You can catch it on, I think Yahoo Sports had the recap of that. Like I said, it's jumping from being annoying in sports to he's going to start being on. He's going to attack women, and that's not right. He's going to attack the, storied companies like Nike, Under Armour. That's not right. He's going to attack a lot. He's going to attack the culture of the Los Angeles Lakers, which is another big thing. If they don't, and if he somehow doesn't end up in Los Angeles, which he will be, then he's going to somehow refuse to play in the NBA. And when I say he's going to refuse, I'm saying LeVar on behalf of Lonzo. I hate that because Lonzo's a great kid, great guy. I mean, he's done a really great job of laying low on his own. He hasn't gone into any personal altercations. It's all his dad, and obviously you have to come out and publicly support your dad. But when he gets drafted, he's got to have to draft. He's going to have an agent. He's going to have a publicist, and that's when the real kicker comes into play on how LeVar is going to act.
And again, just this whole LeVar ordeal has been terrible because, and I'm excited to see Lonzo potentially involve some new leadership in his professional life, and bring on a couple people that will help him
I just hope that somehow LeVar doesn't.
NBA.
I hope LeVar doesn't end up his agent, though. That's my worry.
I hope that someone can come in and tell that guy to shut up because he's going to do nothing
and
but
he's got
hurt
two
his
more,
boy's career.
He's got two more sons that are going to be in the NBA as well. So it's going to be a very
What are you thinking if you're LiAngelo or LaMelo Ball at this point?
Well,
watching everything that your father's putting your older brother through.
What are you thinking if you're the UCLA coach who's found recent success and has been publicly insulted by LeVar Ball, saying that he wasn't coaching his son correctly in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight? You've already offered scholarships to both the LaMelo and LiAngelo. I don't know, man. We've had to talk about it because we've had to talk about it, but we've talked about it in a negative facet, I hope. I hope it's very clear to our listeners, viewers, whatever, that we are not in support of LeVar Ball. We hate that we're talking about it, but we're talking about it to bring attention that we hate it.
Yeah, there you go.
Right?
Well put. And hopefully, whatever professional franchise Lonzo Ball ends up signing with, they can work with him and LeVar and kind of keep LeVar in check.
Yeah,
I'm sick and tired of listening to him, and I hope he just goes away.
He won't, though. We just have to do our best to contain him. We are kind of running a little slower on time, but do you want any highlights of the rest of the mock drafts? Maybe 3 through 10?
There's not really a lot after, the top couple picks, like you mentioned. I'm a big fan of Josh Jackson. I think he'll be successful in the league. He'll probably go pretty high. A guy like Lauri Markkanen played at Arizona. I think underrated, could potentially be a top 10 pick, if not absolutely in the first round.
To the Kings?
He would add a lot. Right now, Sports Illustrated has him projected as going to the Sacramento Kings, but there are a number of teams with which he would be a good fit. Interesting to see Zach Collins so high up at number 11, potentially. Be interesting to see where he goes.
He's got to fit into a system like Gonzaga, and I think Charlotte's building that, so hopefully he goes there. I can't see, if he doesn't go to Charlotte, he's going to drop tremendously. He's not the exact fit for a building team.
So there you go. With that, that's going to wrap up our discussion of the NBA today.
Forever.
And at any point during this show, if you guys have any questions, comments, things you want us to address, please comment them. Let us know on either my Facebook Live feed, Kay's Facebook Live. We'd love to hear from you guys, especially this being Kay's last show. If you have any specific questions for him, comment away.
Please do.
He'd love to answer them.
Yeah. I know a lot of your beta friends, Bix, are big proponents of myself and not fans of you. So ask any questions, beta guys.
There you have it. So we're going to move on a little bit. I have a couple questions coming in here about Major League Baseball, about the NFL. We're not quite there yet. We don't have time to delve into those fully today, but hopefully we will get to some of those questions a little bit later on in the show. But now I want to talk a little bit about the NFL.
Sure. I'm always a fan of it. It's a 365 league, so let's do it.
The first thing is this whole Brady concussion gate that has surfaced in the last 24, 48 hours. Gisele Bündchen, Brady's wife, has come out and said that he suffered a concussion during the season, which not really sure what to make of that at this point. The NFL has come out and defended themselves, saying that Brady had passed every test, even working with outside medical professionals that are not associated with the league. What do you make of this whole thing?
Well, I think we have to use quantitative measurements to assess this, and I think if Brady has done multiple concussion tests, then I don't think we can put blame on anyone other than the people who have conducted those tests. One thing we do know about Tom Brady is that he's got a hand in pretty much every aspect of the New England Patriots, from the equipment managers to the front office. And so all I'm saying is if he wants to play, he's going to play. And I respect that as long as it doesn't hurt him or his life after football. But if we use quantitative measurements to say that he took multiple tests, that's all we can say about it. I just hope that those tests are up to par.
Just when you're thinking the Deflategate jokes will go away, one comes.
That's my last show. I got to put it. I started doing this show 3 years ago at the height of the start of Deflategate. That was like on my first rundown when I was doing a solo show. So got to bring it full circle.
There you go.
Deflated full circle. Oh no.
But like you say, it's difficult to decide what to make of this situation, just because Giselle is, being Brady's wife, probably closer to him than anyone else on the planet, and sees him on a day-to-day basis and how he's feeling, and you don't know, because for her to come out and say something like this out of nowhere, there's got to be something to it. There's a little truth to every lie.
Yeah, and I think by historically studying how Giselle and Tom Brady work, I think there was a purpose behind it. There's no way. I mean, they work very closely together. That's been proven through interviews and through just the way that they operate, from nutrition to publicity. I think it had to be very calculated. Brady wanted that to come out. It wasn't Giselle just saying it. We'll have to see where that leads in the future. I can't make an assessment right now.
Well, certainly something to keep track of.
Sure.
And I guess I'll be looking out for it over the next couple months, getting ready to come back to the show next spring. But I'll be sure to text you and get your input on everything.
Yeah, man. Maybe, I'll have to pop in for maybe your first show back in 2018. I'll just be up the road.
A couple quick notes, other notes about the NFL. LeGarrette Blount today signing with the Philadelphia Eagles in a big move for them. They seem to be adding a whole lot of weapons for their young quarterback, Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I mean, you need a guy like you need a good running back when you have a sophomore quarterback. That was certainly proven with my Tennessee Titans signing DeMarco Murray last year. That took a lot of pressure off of Marcus Mariota. One thing it will do for Carson Wentz is a tall guy to bring down. If you fake a play action to a guy like LeGarrette Blount off the screen, off of a power option, and you go play action with him, it'll open up a quick dump off to the tight end, build confidence for the young man in a very tough NFC East. Yeah, that's a great pickup. Anytime you're adding an offensive weapon for a young quarterback to bring him confidence, whether it's a tight end, running back, or wide receiver, it's always a positive thing. And they need to address the offensive line a little bit more, but LeGarrette Blount can burst through some of these guys, even at his age. So, again, a great pickup.
Do you think this puts the Eagles any closer to contending with the Dallas Cowboys potentially for a division title this season?
I think it does. Look, the Dallas Cowboys went 13-3 last year. The Eagles probably won't win the division, but they're going to have to. They're going to be over 500, I would say, which is a great starting point. Dak's going to have a sophomore slump, and it could even put, if they can win just two more than 500, which is not an easy thing to do in the NFL, then the Philadelphia Eagles can put them up for contention at a wild card spot, which is not an easy thing to say. I think the Dallas Cowboys still win it, but they're not going to win it 13-3. It's going to be close. It's going to be 10-6, 11-5.
All right. Good prediction from Kay.
NFC East, I mean, you got to always talk about it. Right?
We got a question here coming in from Gary Couch. I know we've previewed, we've done our way too early predictions for the next NFL season. Gary's asking about each winner from every division in the NFL next season. Obviously, we don't have time to get into every single division today, but how about you pick a breakout team for us that many people don't see coming in the NFC and in the AFC for next season? All right, how about you do the AFC, I'll do the NFC.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to talk about the AFC, and I think it's pretty obvious who I support. it's on my head. So the Tennessee Titans are going to be your breakout team of the year. And there's so many reasons for this. One, the AFC South is not strong. It's going to take 1 year for Tom Coughlin to have an influence on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Deshaun Watson and Tom Savage are going to fight for that starting spot and lose a couple games early. Andrew Luck is still, and the Colts are still building, and that kind of puts the Tennessee Titans as a shoe-in, I would say, for the AFC South. Now, why would they be better than other AFC teams? They have a great running game. They have a great offensive line, and I always believe the offensive line is where you start. They have a third-year quarterback, granted coming off of a broken fibula, but so is Derek Carr. And they've built their secondary up through the free agency, adding Logan Ryan, who is a great role player for the New England Patriots, and Adoree Jackson in the draft. And they added a wide receiver number 1 in Corey Davis, you're going to hear his names, you're going to want to draft him in the second and third round of your fantasy leagues. All of those will build a holistically different Tennessee Titans. And I'm not just saying that subjectively, I'm saying it objectively, just looking at the facts. They went from 2-14 to 9-7 and have only gotten better while their division has only gotten worse. So that's my breakout team for the AFC.
All right, there you go. And for the NFC, I'm going to go with the team that we talked about towards the end of last season as potentially making a run at things in the 2018 regular season. And that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
2017.
2017. We do start in 2017.
2018 playoffs.
2018 playoffs. We'll get to that in a couple months. But the Buccaneers, for me, are probably the team most poised to break out this upcoming season just because of all the pieces that they have in place. We saw them finish strong last season, couldn't quite get it together. Falcons did a great job closing things out. It's going to be a tough division. The NFC South is incredibly difficult. The Falcons, obviously coming off a Super Bowl appearance, are extremely good. The Carolina Panthers will surely be making a comeback this year. And even the Saints, who will probably finish bottom of the division, are not bad at all. Drew Brees is still around and kicking, and he's going to make some noise. But especially with a great draft, the Buccaneers selected O.J. Howard, the tight end out of Alabama, in the first round. Added a couple other offensive pieces like Chris Goodwin, wide receiver out of Penn State. Jameis Winston is going to have so many options in 2017. He's not going to know what to do with them.
Well, and one thing I will say is I agree with you completely because their division is not like it's the strongest division in football. I mean, the Panthers are going to have to make another run at things. The Saints are still rebuilding, and who's the last team in the NFC South?
Panthers, Saints, Buccaneers, Falcons.
Falcons. Well, the Falcons are actually going to be great, but the Buccaneers still have a great shot at rebuilding. And I've always said this, for a young quarterback, first, second, third year in the league, the biggest thing that you can have is a tight end. So going back to Mariota, he had Delanie Walker, a Pro Bowl tight end. When Peyton Manning was just entering the league, he found a great tight end set in Jacob Tannen. And when Andrew Luck, who was his predecessor, entered the league, they went out and drafted a great tight end to help him in Colby Fleener. Now, that didn't pan out, but it takes a lot of pressure off a young quarterback. So O.J. Howard is the best pickup for this. He has size, he has run blocking ability, and he's got definitely catching ability.
Their offense is all ready to go. It just comes down to whether their defense can hold up to the pressure that's going to come from the rest of the NFC South and the rest of the league.
Yeah, and they addressed some of those problems in the offseason last year. They went out and got a CB1 in Vernon Hargreaves. I think that's a great pick. Even in this draft, I think they spent their second pick on a safety. So they definitely see that as a concern. And and they also have Gerald McCoy, who's a top paid defensive lineman who's going to come into his own. He's going to provide that prime veteran leadership for the young guys, and I love it. I think the Buccaneers are poised for a breakout season as well. So I have to agree with you there.
Well, we will look forward to seeing those two teams in 2017. Moving along a little bit in the NFL here. conversations about overtime being reduced this year from 15 to 10 minutes. I had mixed feelings about this one, Kay, because on one hand, overtime was too long, and it wasn't fun, especially if you had a game that went all the way, to the very last minute.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's tough because you want things to be shorter so that it's actually exciting to watch.
Well, here's the thing, Bix. You grew up on the West Coast, right, your whole life. So you had primetime games starting at 5:30. On the East Coast, where obviously there's a big population, you have most of your games starting at 8:30. Now, adding a 15-minute overtime to a game that already ends at 11:30 at night on a Monday night or a Sunday night, where you have school the next day, you have work the next day, what have you, you're extending that experience into 12:30, 1 o'clock for most of the people who watch football. That's a big thing. Even on the Central Time, you have it extending from 10:30 to midnight. So I think it's a double-edged sword because, yes, you're going to reduce game time, and that's always a good thing. But we still had 2 ties last year, which is never a victory for either team and never a victory for the fans. So I think addressing the fact there were still 2 ties last year maybe says that, okay, we don't need to reduce overtime if it's just going to be, there's no penalty kick system or penalty shootout system in NFL football. But, you got to address the time for the East Coast viewers as a priority one. And just pray that there's no ties.
Do you think this change gets made?
I think it does. I think the NFL, correct me if I'm wrong, has already said that they will reduce commercial times to make it more elongated as breaks, but not right after a kickoff, right after a punt. They're going to have, instead of having 3 commercials and then coming back to action, they're going to have, I think, 4 or 5, and then keep the action on the field.
They have done a little bit of that. Roger Goodell, league commissioner, spoke a little bit about it during the draft, draft weekend. Which is a welcome change.
Absolutely.
Something that was needed.
They're going to categorize this as in terms of TV game flow, and for that reason, I think it'll be passed.
All right. Moving right along. Beth Mowins came out this week that she will be the first woman ever to call an NFL game, and she'll do so week 1, the Los Angeles Chargers, Denver Broncos game, with Rex Ryan as her co-host.
Yeah, so ESPN's making a lot of changes. It's a very dynamic change to bring to the booth. I obviously have no problem at all with having a female commentator. I'm surprised it took this long. I will say, though, I just hope that ESPN is not following what many people are saying is just a political agenda to have talking heads instead of people that actually know the game enough. And the reason I say that is, I think there are qualified female journalists, and I think that there are qualified female commentators, and I just hope that Beth Mowins is the right person for that. I'm not familiar with how much experience she has with football. I know she has done, I believe, the Women's World Cup. So she has spent time in the booth, and I'm sure the ESPN has thought about that. I just hope it translates well into a vastly different playing field in American football.
Yeah, fun fact, she actually has the same birthday as I do, so we'll both be celebrating.
So maybe not she's qualified.
But yeah, as you mentioned, she's done the FIFA World Cup before. She's worked as a sports journalist for both ESPN and CBS. She's called a number of women's college sports, and she became only the second woman ever to call a nationally televised college football game for ESPN back in 2005. So she certainly has the experience. I'm excited to see what she can do. And it's great, like you said, seems like it's legit to have more women coming into the sports media field. We're starting finally to be able to say that we have household names in terms of what you think of people like Aaron Andrews, like Heidi Watney, like Christine Leahy this morning even.
And for me, Doris Berg, I think she's a big
Doris Berg,
sports.
Michelle Tafoya, Pam Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have been able to do this 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually, and you know, another person for me is Ramona Shelburne. She's been one of the greatest basketball writers of the decade, and it's you know, it's not a hidden fact that, you know, sensuality or sexuality in women are go hand in hand in sports media. So I appreciate that it's all about the writing, it's all about the content over just the presentation. And so I think people like Doris Burke, Ramona Shelburne, even Christine Leahy, they've all done a great job as journalists, and I think that should come first, and it is coming first now. So I'm a big proponent of this because it's all about, you know, how media represents what we believe or what we perceive. You know, people of color being on SportsCenter is huge. People of color being in the booth is huge. You know, women being in the booth is huge because it represents. It's a representation of the greater whole, which is awesome.
There you go. Another one of the final takes that we will have from Kay.
Not a hot take, just a good take.
All right, that's going to do it for us today in the NFL. We got a couple more minutes here before we move into the last somewhat special part of our show, our send-off for UK. But really quickly, with the next 10 minutes that we have, let's talk about the NHL.
I would love to.
So we're in the middle of the conference finals right now.
Yeah.
On one side, you have the Nashville Predators playing the Anaheim Ducks.
Yes, sir.
Nashville just went up 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
You're very excited about that.
I am.
Big potential for the Predators, and it was big for them to get that Game 3 win.
It was huge. It was their first. It was their 10th consecutive home playoff win, which is the first time that's happened in 20 years. Really goes to show you how much Nashville and Smashville is all in on the Predators. They had, you know, a star in Keith Urban come out and do the national anthem, which actually doesn't happen a lot in a secondary sport like hockey. You had even in Los Angeles.
Going to anger a lot of people with the secondary sport comment.
But it is true, and I'll get to that in a second. You had the Tennessee Titans, led by Marcus Mariota, doing the first send-off, the catfish send-off, in the first period. And you had the Nashville Predators making a statement in a league that's often dominated by cold weather cities. Why do I say it's a secondary sport? I'm texting my buddy, my best friend, right? I'm texting him saying, hey, man, are you watching this? Did you see Marcus Mariota? Did you see Keith Urban do the national anthem? He's like, oh, you know, I'm a huge Nashville guy. I'm a huge Nashville sports guy, but I don't get NBCSN. I'm like, that's a problem. That's a secondary sport problem. That's an MLS problem, an NHL problem. That is something that needs to be addressed. I was all in. I'm luckily have the channel that I have to, you know, flip through for 15 minutes just to find every time I tune into a game. But the fact that some people still don't get a channel which the conference finals are on is a secondary sports issue.
How do you change that up though? Because at this point, the NHL playoffs are pretty much competing with the NBA playoffs.
Yeah.
And the NBA dominates a lot of the coverage and dominates some of the bigger networks. They're on TNT, they're on ABC, ESPN. So how does the NHL break into that? Typically, you have to get a little more popular first before you get your shot with the big boys on the bigger networks.
Well, here's my thing: have the first and second rounds on NBCSN and CNBC.
And you still do have games on NBC.
Yes, but that's my problem. You don't have games on NBC until the Stanley Cup Finals, so no build-up to it. My thing has always been before the Predators were relevant. Is I wouldn't dare tune in, or I wouldn't want to tune into the NHL playoffs, and especially wouldn't want to tune into the Stanley Cup Finals because I was like, okay, well, I don't know how these teams got here. I wasn't able to watch a game because I didn't get this channel. It was too hard to find it. There was no accessibility. So now that it's on NBC, I'd want to tune in, but I don't know any of the players. I don't want to watch any of the games. So I think you got to put the first and second round on CNBC, which is a pretty accessible channel. And maybe NBCSN, but you got to start with the conference finals and the finals on major networks. NBCSN is just not won yet.
Hopefully we see it get there
Yes.
in the next couple of years, because we've
But
talked about it a
right.
lot. The NHL playoffs have been incredibly exciting and a lot of fun to watch.
Yes, and going back to the actual games, the Predators did take a 2-1 series lead, and they have their next game in Nashville tomorrow. Should be a lot of fun. We actually have a game going on right now.
Yeah, it's the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Ottawa Senators. Game 3, the series currently tied at 1. Ottawa struck first, up 1-0 early in the first period.
Ottawa, yes, and it is key to note that the Pittsburgh Penguins were the favorites, the Stanley Cup favorites, and still are, but they're missing three key players in this game. All three big names, all three with foreign names that I did not remember and cannot probably pronounce. But losing three players out of your 13 to 15 that are on your overall on your team is a huge loss. So the Penguins are actually down because of that, I would say, and they're playing in Ottawa.
They've shown that they can be resilient, though. We saw the last series with the Washington Capitals. They got out to an early lead. We're up 3-1 in the series. Washington brought it back, tied things, and they managed to get just enough to win in that Game 7 and keep going. So regardless of whether they win tonight or not, I don't think it's a team that you can count out. The Penguins have shown, especially over the last couple seasons, how good they can be in the postseason. So it's going to be a fun one. We're keeping track of it here for you guys. Still 1-0 currently in favor of Ottawa. But
Just 7 minutes into the game, though, so a lot to happen.
Who you got winning this series and who you got winning out west?
I still have Pittsburgh winning the series. I hope that they can at least come back. And I mean, it's only a 1-goal lead in 8 minutes into the game. Pittsburgh needs to win this one because the next game also will be in Ottawa. So you got to at least split the series in Ottawa. Because if Ottawa wins right now, they have a 2-1 game lead going back into a home ice advantage. Spells trouble for Pittsburgh. And I think a lot of people would say that that puts a team like Pittsburgh in danger, especially with the injury that's been plaguing them.
So, how about out west? Who wins how many games?
Out west, I do have the Predators winning in 6. The reason I say that is they have a 2-1 series. I mean, it's exactly what I had spelled out on the East. Is they have a 2-1 game lead going back into Nashville. Has been objectively said that it's the best home ice advantage this season. So if they can win another one there, they'd have a 3-1 game lead. I think they probably will go back to Anaheim and lose. So I think the Preds will be in 6, but it'll still be a dominant 6 instead of a plaguing 6.
I'm going to agree with you on that one. I'm all in on your hometown team. I'm also going Predators in 6. I've got the Penguins in 7 on the other side, setting up a Pittsburgh-Nashville Stanley Cup final, which would be really fun to watch.
It would be
I
a lot of fun.
I'd probably try to tune into every game if I had the opportunity to watch them all.
It'll be on NBC, so I would say, keep up with. This is the first. I'm going to admit, I'm a very casual fan, and I wouldn't be watching the NHL playoffs if it weren't for the Predators. But what this has allowed me to do is get more into hockey for the regular season, and even if the Predators, don't make it as far next year, I would still be all in on hockey. I was texting a buddy of mine who's a true hockey Predators fan, AT, and I was saying, I'm a fan of sports, and this is the most nerve-wracking sport that you could watch because it doesn't let you, the way the rules are set up and the way the game is set up, it doesn't let you take your eyes off the screen. And you
don't relax. There's no time.
You don't relax. Your heart rate is going so fast. At any point there could be a goal. At any point it could be a game-changing goal. It's a lot of fun. Even if you're a casual fan, watch hockey. It'll take you a couple of games to get acclimated into it, but definitely do that because, I used to complain that I couldn't see the puck and all that. I didn't understand the rules. It took me a couple of games to get into it, but now I'm all in. I can't wait to tune into every game. So here I am. It converted me.
Well, there you have it. And with that, that's going to take us kind of to the end of our sports commentary
right at 5:30
for the year. But for the last half hour of our show, I've planned out a couple special questions for Kay. We're going to break things down about the sports world, about his personal future, trying to get him to not look at my questions over here that I got set up on my computer. So we're going to grill you a little bit, Kay, for this last half hour, and hopefully you enjoy it. But right before we do that, quick reminder, the Boston Celtics and Cleveland Cavaliers game tips off right about now. Any second now they should get going. It's going to be a great game one. We hope you stick around for this last half hour of Bix and K, but after that, knock yourselves out, go have fun, watch game one of the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, you can turn it on now. Just keep us in your ear. Before we get started, you are listening to Bix and K. It's 5:30. If you have any questions for me, which Bix has a lot, I can see over there. If you have any questions for me, please ask away. Please comment away. It's the last time you'll be able to do so. You can ask about my anything. So yeah, let's get into it. Last half hour.
This is it. So, Kay, you ready?
No.
All right. Well, too bad. Here we go. First thing for you. You're moving up to LA.
I am.
After graduation. It's become a pretty big sports hub, you could say, with the NFL coming back.
So what? There's
you got 2 NBA teams
and 2 hockey teams and 2 baseball teams.
One hockey team.
Anaheim.
Two baseball teams, basically. Soon to be 2 MLS teams.
Yeah.
It's a big market. Lot of chances to run into people. Give me the athlete that you would most want to run into and meet, and then beyond that, just pick a celebrity.
I would have to say that the athlete I'd want to meet is Chris Paul. I just really respect the guy. He's all in around Los Angeles, and I hope I could parlay that into meeting Blake Griffin, because I've always wanted to meet the humorous Blake Griffin. Obviously, he's cooled down in the world of sports, but I've always respected Chris Paul, the way he's handled himself. He would be my number one pick to meet. In terms of celebrity, I don't know if any of you guys know, but I will be working in the film industry, so hopefully I'll be able to call them colleagues. But I've always admired the man that changed film forever in Steven Spielberg. I would always love to meet him. Yeah, I mean, let's make a sports movie together, right?
Wouldn't that be
sports
something?
talk movie.
All right, you guys may see us fidgeting here with our headsets a little bit, having some technical difficulties. It seems like we might be back online now, but yeah, there we go. Anyway, moving on a little bit. We talked about how many teams there are in LA.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of the Los Angeles sports market, and where do you think it's going?
Yeah, what's really interesting about the Los Angeles sports market is it's so spread out and diverse, and it's kind of reminiscent of the city itself. So the reason I say that is you have the Lakers and Clippers and the Kings in downtown LA, which is a rising part of Los Angeles. But then you're going to have the Rams. They're playing right now. They're playing at the Coliseum in South Central. They will be playing in Inglewood. On the Chargers, you have them playing in Carson, California. They will be playing in Inglewood as well on the west side of LA. You have to consider that the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim are a Los Angeles team. They're playing down in Anaheim. LAFC, I believe, will be playing on the east side of LA. So it's very spread out, and I really like that about Los Angeles. I will be in the north part of Hollywood. I'll be living in North Hollywood, actually. It'll be very difficult to get anywhere, but Dodger Stadium will be very close to me on the northeast part of LA. So I would love to go to a Dodgers game. I've never been to one, so...
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Have to get out, see some baseball, but
yeah.
The thing with LA teams is they're not doing so hot right now, excluding maybe the Los Angeles Galaxy, who seem to be in it every year for the MLS. You want to throw the Dodgers in that conversation, making the playoffs. They have a good shot this year. Who wins the next title in LA? That's going to be a big moment, especially with now all the teams that have flocked to Los Angeles. Who's going to grab people's attentions first? Because people don't have long attention spans.
I'm going to discount the Galaxy on this one because they would seem to be the team that would win it next. But I don't want to discount them because soccer is not a real sport or whatever that. But they have always been a huge franchise that has not felt any downfall. So going team by team, it's going to be a while for the Lakers. It's going to be a while for the Clippers. It's going to be a while for the Angels. It's going to be a while for the Chargers. It's going to be a while for the Rams. I would say that I have to lean the Dodgers. I think the LA Dodgers, while there is a lot of competition in the MLB, I think they've always been in the mix as of recently. They have a great pitching core, and I think that LA has actually gotten around to the Dodgers. They are fans of them, and you can't really say that about one single team in LA. Maybe besides the Lakers, but even then, there's Clippers fans. I would say a lot of LA is around for the Dodgers. So,
as a Giants fan, I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit.
Yeah.
Would hate to see the Dodgers win a Major League Baseball World Series, but who knows? Could happen. Your favorite? What team do you most want to go see play? We're going to say excluding the Lakers on this one because I know you're a big Laker fan as it is. You've been to Laker games before, but
I have.
Excluding them, what franchise would you most like to go see play? What's the first ticket you're going to buy that's not a Laker ticket as soon as you get to LA?
I'm a big football, going to football game fan, and I've always wanted to see a game in the Coliseum. And I know you might be thinking that I'm going to go to a Rams game. No, I really want to go to a USC Trojans game. I want to see them play. I want to see that atmosphere. It's not going to be too far from me. And the USC Trojans are LA in a lot of ways. And the Coliseum is LA in a lot of ways. I'm actually going to go want to see the USC Trojans play.
They're going to be pretty good this year, too, with Sam Darnold at the helm.
Yeah.
Potential top 5 draft pick next year.
I would say so. I'm switching, by the way, sorry, I don't mean to be on my phone. We're switching from Periscope to Instagram to get a little more viewership in here.
Oh, there you go. Always at the forefront of different kinds of media. We've tried to reach you guys in a number of different ways this year.
That's right.
Facebook Live, Instagram, Periscope, right here through uofsdmedia.com.
That's
so
right.
we hope you've enjoyed it. Continuing on, though, Kay, we've talked a lot about LA so far. We're going to switch gears a little bit and do a little review.
Okay.
These last 4 years that you've been in college, and most notably the last 3 that you've been doing a radio show here.
Yeah.
What have been some of your best moments? Your favorite moments, favorite things to cover
in radio?
In radio, as long as you've been here. Looking back at your college years, what are you going to remember?
Looking back, I'm going to always remember my first show. I was doing it alone. I was doing it right here. We had a whole different setup. I had no idea what I was doing. I had basically written a couple notes down on Google Docs. This was my sophomore year, and I just talked into a mic, and it was a very meditative experience once I got started. I would take music breaks because I didn't have a person to bounce ideas off of, and that was one of my favorite moments. But I loved the show. Completely changed when you joined and we became Bix and K. I think what I really loved was doing our mock draft special because we both are very similar in terms of how we want to report sports media. We were very much quantitative numbers guys. We were power rankings guys. We could probably power rank this show. The mock draft show last year was one of my favorite shows. And, of course, I think the Leicester episode when we, that was a favorite moment of mine. After they won the league, we had come right into the studio straight from them winning the league and talking about that and talking about sports memories. Those were my favorite few moments on that show.
Oh, glad to hear it. What about any bad moments? What were difficult things to cover? Difficulties in just producing the show? What was tough for you?
Yeah, I think if any of you guys want to go into sports media or media in general, you're going to have to learn that you're going to be relying on other people. But you have to find ways to make the show happen yourself. There's a couple weeks towards the beginning of last year, I don't know if you remember, Bix, where we didn't get to do the show until I think right before Thanksgiving. That was a month or two into the school year. That hurt because there was a lot for us to talk about. We couldn't get around to it. We were relying on other people.
It's difficult being on a school schedule.
It is difficult being on a school schedule. And I think one of the hardest things was really upscaling the show. So when we first started doing it, we weren't really doing the video chat, the video streaming. Then we got into doing the show on Periscope, and we got attention from a guy like Clay Travis who shouted us out. Then we went into Facebook Live. We have 2 Facebook Lives. You guys can't see what we see, but it's an amazing feature. Then we got back into Periscope and back onto Instagram, and still on U of SD Media. So upscaling that show was really difficult for us, but now, I can gladly say that we probably went from like 100 listeners to 800 to 1,000 on average, and that was huge.
Yeah, it's certainly been a lot of fun, but with that comes the fact that you have to be so much more prepared.
You do.
Because now you got a bigger audience and people are starting to actually pay attention.
And I hope that even if you guys just, a couple of you guys have stopped me and said, oh, hey, man, it's good to see you again. I see you on Facebook sometimes doing your show. Thanks for doing that, because that shows that people are actually paying attention.
Yeah, and we very much appreciate it.
Absolutely. On Facebook, you might just see a 1 up there next to the live, or on Instagram, you might see 3 or 4. On Bix, you might see 1 or 2. But those are flowing listeners, and that's when we say that we get 800 to 1,000 viewers. That's total viewers across the hour and a half that we do the show, and people that view it afterwards. So, we want to be prepared so that people can continue tuning in. This is our last show, but, I'm going to be a sports fan forever, so hit me up.
Hopefully we'll be able to get you back into the studio in the future, Kay. But what about this summer? What are you looking forward to as, the weather gets a little warmer?
Yeah.
You're headed up the coast.
I am.
What's going to be the most exciting thing for you to see in LA or beyond? What big sports events can we?
I'm excited about the chance to watch the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. I won't be going to a game. I hope one day I'll be able to say that I go. But we've always said as sports fans, summer is the hardest months. I mean, you have one consistent sport, and at times when you check your ESPN home button, there's like nothing going on at times over the summer. That being said, I will be going to New York for some time for some work opportunities in July. I hope that if I have a little bit of time, I can go catch my first game at Yankee Stadium. I've always wanted to do that. That will be a lot of fun. And I think it's an off year for soccer as well. I think there's only the Confederations Cup, which that'll be fun to watch on TV, but it's not a major tournament. It'll be a slow month. It'll be a slow few months for sports, but a big and busy few months for my career. They won't be overlapping, but I hope that I can keep the two alive.
Good. Maybe you could focus on your career a little bit if the sports are dying down.
That's right, man.
Pick it back up again in the fall, and you'll get distracted.
Exactly.
Love to hear it. All right, how about if you could attend one sporting event? You had to pick one across any of the major sports in the U.S. What would you choose?
If I had to pick one sport?
One sporting event.
One sporting event that I'd want to go to.
Yeah.
I think the easiest thing to say is the Super Bowl. But, I've always wanted to be a viewer of the NFL draft in person. I think that would be really fun.
Not even a game.
Not even a game.
Any sporting event. He doesn't even pick a game.
See, I've had few. I've tied into the Super Bowl. I don't know if that would count. I've been able to watch Messi score a free kick goal. That was a big thing I got to cross off the bucket list. I was able to see Kobe Bryant live. That was huge. I've yet to see LeBron live. That would be one thing. But yeah, I would say I would still stick with the NFL draft. I think that would be really fun live and in person.
All right. Just a quick note. Thank you all those of you who are sticking with us right now. Kay and I doing a little reminiscing with the last, 16 minutes left of our show before Kay graduates and heads off up to LA. So thank you. Trying to get a little insight from the big senior over here and seeing what he has to say. So thank you for sticking with us.
Absolutely.
Which brings me to my next question, Kay. Besides myself, of course, if you had to work with one sports personality, who would it be and why?
I have said this time and time again on this show. I really look up to Colin Cowherd and his regime at Fox Sports 1. I think what they've done in sports is huge. He was the first 24-hour sports talk radio show streaming through iHeartRadio. He's a guy that I look up to because he brings in what sports really represents, and that's a getaway from real life, but he brings in real life into it as well. He's a very smart guy to listen to. All of his arguments are backed up by fact. And bringing a guy like Nick Wright, who I've gotten to know recently over time, and I wish him luck in New York. Bringing those guys in, smart guys like him, Jason Whitlock, Christine Leahy, to bring a sense of professionalism, moderate opinions, I don't know the best way to phrase that, and cold hard facts to support an argument. I mean, that's something I really respect. And, so, he's a holistic sports talk radio host, and we don't get that much. So I really respect the game.
That kind of leads me into my next question here, which is, a lot of people know Colin Cowherd now, but for most of his career, he's been primarily a radio guy.
Yeah.
So why did you choose radio, and do you see it as something that can survive as a medium going forward? Because a lot of people think it's headed in the wrong direction.
Sure, but
that affects what we've been doing here for the last couple of years.
One thing I want to say is, a majority of our listeners can see us on. I have to actually, when I was first doing the show, no one saw what I looked like. I was dressed in like shorts and a t-shirt. Now I'm wearing a blazer. But this is my point. We're still doing radio, but we are adapting to it. We are doing live streaming. A guy like Colin Cowherd, like I mentioned, did the first 24-hour sports talk radio that streams all the time on iHeartRadio, which is using technology to his advantage. I think the power of the voice has always been a very strong medium. It has, obviously we're going in a different direction, but it's an adapting medium. Podcasts, for example, I mean, I don't know if you would consider that radio, but it's up in the air, but it's still the power of the voice. So I chose it because, we grew up in the Sports Center era where we would have to tune into TV for highlights, right? Or the actual events being played out. But radio was doing the analysis, was breaking down what we saw, having a dialogue about it with viewers or with you. And that's why I wanted to choose this. I wanted to analyze what I saw. I didn't want to just provide the scores. You can go on your phone and get the scores. You're not going to tune into my or our, college radio show because you wanted to know what the score of last night's game was. You wanted to hear what we thought about it as millennials, representative of a whole. You wanted to know what we saw from it, from a different perspective. That's why I wanted to get into radio, even though it's on a very amateur level.
So in the end, it was fulfilling for you.
It was.
Given the opportunity, which route would you choose if you aren't, but if you were to continue in this field as you go on in life? Is it radio? Is it TV? Is it something else? What
in terms of sports? In
terms of sports media, what would be your ideal way to cover what we see?
I would stick to this hybrid of what we've kind of. I would say that Clay Travis was the big guy that started live streaming radio, and I think Periscope and Facebook Live help with that. I would stick with this hybrid that we've kind of perfected in this small studio that we have. I'm talking into one microphone, you're talking into one microphone. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and sometimes 5 devices going at once. I think this hybrid of us talking to the microphone primarily through UFSD Media, but live streaming that through certain mediums that are new and adapting, that's what I would choose, and I wouldn't do anything differently.
You've talked a lot about guys like Clay Travis, like Colin Cowherd, Nick Wright. Who are some other figures that you've looked up to in your time here at USD, but even before that, in terms of sports media personalities that have really helped you become the commentator that you are today?
Stuart Scott. I think Stuart Scott, God rest his soul, may he rest in peace. I think he was a big person that I knew. I could hear his voice. I could see him on TV. And I knew what he was. I knew what he represented is what I mean.
A big reason that pop culture kind of entered the scene in this, we take it for granted today. You have sports on ESPN, sports shows on ESPN and other networks like that combine this sense of culture with athletics, but that wasn't really around much before Stewart came along.
I agree, and even a guy like John Anderson, I think the way they played together and what they represented for sports media, you have to remember that Stuart Scott was entering a new landscape in terms of the media as a whole, and he was a person of color that provided an example for a lot of other people to look up to. And he came into work every day at ESPN knowing what he wanted to say that day and knowing what he had to do that day to create the best product. That's something I really look forward to. I think it was a good life lesson that he taught. His speech at the ESPYs is one of the most, something I look at when it's a gloomy day, when I have to realize what I have and the opportunities I have to grow as a person.
I have it downloaded on my computer, ready at the click of a button whenever I need it.
There you go.
But with that, though, you talk about all these household names like a Stuart Scott, like a Scott Van Pelt now, John Anderson, all born out of the ESPN era. Mm-hmm. Will we ever see another sort of ESPN, or is the future of sports destined to be fragmented into a million different pieces, with everyone being able to comment on what's going on?
Well, the reason people loved ESPN is this was the working man's day in 1990, right? It would be you go to work in the morning, listening to your car radio, your sports, even if it's sports talk, previewing the games of that day. Then you stick at work. You stick at work from 9 to 5. At 5 o'clock, you maybe go and you grab a beer, you grab dinner with your family, and maybe there's one game on. But when you're home that day, you're kicking off those shoes. What did you turn on to find out the rest of the scores, or what happened in sports news? You would turn on ESPN. You would turn on SportsCenter. They would tell you the highlights, the top tens, the standings. They would tell you who got promoted, arrested, whatever. They would tell you who got injured. Everything. That was in that 1 hour at home before you went to bed, SportsCenter. Now we don't need that. We don't see ESPN as the worldwide leader in sports news. Now it's becoming the worldwide leader in sports opinion, and it's losing that battle because of the shifting dynamic of sports media into columnists that are writing opinions online, or Bleacher Report that's combining culture. FS1, obviously a huge reason. You're getting pro talent to debate, to argue, to voice their opinions, because it's all about opinions. It's not about what happened in sports. It's not about who won Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Is Zaza a dirty player? And that's where the changing landscape of ESPN is coming into fruition. And I think I'm okay with this diversified, FS1, ESPN, NBCSN, CBS Sports Network, etc., etc. I'm okay with it because that's how we should view and take in our media from different perspectives, not just one. And that's where we have to. Well, I think that's another issue of media as a whole. But yeah, I'm okay with it.
I think that's going to be our one last hot take from Kay as he's on his way out. Do have a couple more minutes, though, for you. We've gotten some of the insight. We've heard a little bit about what you're doing in the future. Now, couple last fun questions for you. First one being, if you could take on literally any position in the sports world, what position would it be, and in what sport? Any front office position, could be sports media, if you had to be a member of any team, what would it be?
I'd always dreamed of being a GM in the NFL for Tennessee Titans, and I think a reason for that is my favorite event in sports is the draft. I come from a business background. My dad is big in business. I come from a wheeling and dealing, charismatic negotiation-like family, and I see a little bit of that in myself. And I would love to not only be a part of, not only to lead a team to a Super Bowl, but do so at the hands of my decisions. I wouldn't want to be a coach. I couldn't be a coach, but I feel like I would find some success at the GM position, because that would be my team that I'm building, and that would be, every favorite part of my sport. And what I would love is that, I hate to say this, but what I would love is having no control on Sundays. I would love to build my team from Monday to Saturday, and then go to the game, sit in the suite, and watch my product on Sunday.
Interesting take.
Yeah.
What? So I guess you would be the Titans GM then,
I would be
if you could so choose.
Yes, I would be the Titans GM, but I don't think I'd want to live in Nashville compared to LA.
Shots fired towards the hometown.
No, I love the hometown. But
if you had to make one move right now for the Tennessee Titans, what would it be?
Ooh.
General Manager Karan Wadwa.
Okay, I would say that we should have gotten Richard Sherman from the draft and traded away our 18th pick and gotten the 33rd.
All right, interesting take.
Yeah, see, I was very specific. I thought about
Maybe they should put you in charge.
Yeah, man. Well, I love John Robinson, but down the road.
Last question I got for you here today. Last one I've got planned out. Of all your favorite teams that you could think of, Tennessee Titans, Barcelona, University of Kentucky Wildcats, Nashville Predators, any of those teams, who wins a title first, and why?
Man, I think Barcelona. I mean, it's a hard cobblestone path for the Tennessee Titans. Kentucky has reached its climax, its apex, but Barcelona, is still, even though people will argue Real Madrid this year they won't win. This year they will win, and Barcelona won't. Barcelona, what it represents as a whole for the Catalan people, building through possession, building through a communal-like atmosphere. I grew up with guys like Xavi and Iniesta and Messi, obviously. Those kind of guys and what they represent in the sports world, in the world as a whole, that's what I want to see winning, and I think that's who I will see winning just next year. I mean, when they don't win a cup, it's like they'll win it next year, and it's not like it's the end of the world, but it is the end of the world for some. I think what I love supporting Barcelona because of, like I said, what they represent and how they play football and what that means to football fans around the world. I know that there's not a lot of Tennessee Titans fans around the world, much less around the country. But with Barcelona, what they represent as a whole, and the community that they've built, probably 1 billion strong, 100 million strong, that's what I love. That's what I love to be a part of.
Well, that's it.
5:58.
We made it, Kay.
We have 1 minute left. It's 5:59 now.
Well, as this is the end of an era, again, Bix and K is ending today. That's it. Potentially, in all likelihood, I will be back in next spring semester in some form going into my junior year.
Bixen question mark. Who's going to take over my position?
We've said it so many times today already, but Kay is graduating on his way out for the last time. We just wanted to take these last couple minutes here to thank all of you guys. We've said it a lot, but to everyone that has at any point tuned into our show, offered a comment, a question, anything. If you've been a part of this whole ride for us, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. It's been a lot of fun, and just having you guys indulge us as amateur sports commentators, it's been a heck of a ride. It's been a lot of fun. And Kay, personally, from me to you, thank you so much. for making my first 2 years here at the University of San Diego so special. It's been incredible working with you. Had a lot of good times. Every show has been an absolute blast. From planning out exactly how it's going to go to riffing off of each other. Love getting to talk sports with you. I know it won't end as you graduate and head out of here, but we won't be able to make fools of ourselves and do it on Facebook Live or Periscope or Instagram or U of SD Media anymore.
Thank you, Bix, for everything. I've loved seeing you grow. One thing I will say before we sign off here is this is something that could be representative of a whole. We always need a sports talk voice here, and you have a couple more years. Granted, you'll be studying abroad. But in 2018, I hope you find a worthy colleague to replace me and to continue this dialogue, because I think we need it.
All right. Well, there you go. For one very last time, he's Kay, I'm Bix. You've been watching or listening to Bix and K Sports Talk Radio here at the University of San Diego. We thank you so much, and we'll see you out in the stands someday.
That sounds great. Thank you guys so much for
Thank
everything.
you.